Okay, hi, I'm Hilary Walton and welcome along to Digital Culture Ideas, which explores how technology and the internet significantly shape the way we interact, behave, think and communicate. So in short, this is a show about technology and people. So if you're interested in digital culture ideas, tips and discussions, then make sure you subscribe or join me on the Digital Culture Ideas groups on LinkedIn and Facebook. But with me today, I have the inspiring Matt Jones. So Matt is the Director and Principal Consultant of Advanced Safety. He's founder of Business Leaders New Zealand, founder of New Zealand Health and Safety Professionals, radio host of Health and Safety Unplugged and Business Leaders New Zealand, and just this week, the Advanced Safety Podcast. So he's a podcast producer and one of the first health and safety professionals to become Health and Safety Association New Zealand registered. He's a father of 5, a mentor, a volunteer. He's passionate about helping individuals and teams find their confidence and business owners really discover what they are truly capable of. He regularly produces value-loaded information and content on the radio, social media, live web events, and public talks, and everything he does and it is intended to be accessible to a wide as an audience as possible, which I really love about you, Matt. And the reason you do that? You say it's to turn the current tide of preventable workplace fatalities in New Zealand and beyond. Matt, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Hilary. What an amazing intro too. So yeah, it's my pleasure to be here.
Well, Matt, I do consider you a friend, and we've worked together about 4 years ago in a safety, risk and security and assurance team, which was so much fun. Mm-hmm. And we've kept in touch ever since. And I just feel like you've kindly mentored me from time to time as I've been venturing down the road of digital culture ideas and really developing my own digital behaviours. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And it's also an absolute pleasure just to be part of this series, this interview today, and also just seeing you really blossom on the social media space as well. So yeah, the pleasure's all mine.
Oh, well, thank you, Matt. And speaking of digital behaviours, Matt, you're pretty prolific on social media and online. You know, Advanced Safety, your successful health and safety consultancy, now has a global partners program. And I saw the other day also with your health and safety professionals group, that actually had 1,000 members the other day. Yes. And during a lockdown, you decided, I'm just going to start this brand new kind of COVID response series on Facebook Live. So doing things actually live. So how did all of that start and how did you get to here?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Gosh, where to start? I think ultimately it boils right back down to my values. So I've got a strong belief system around giving back as much as possible. And so in times of stress and in times of when things really hit the fan, I often find myself being at the front of the line, trying to provide as much support and assistance to those that may not even be aware that they need assistance at the time. So at the moment with COVID-19, as you've mentioned, I decided to do the live broadcast on the Facebook group, not really knowing where that would take us, but my gut told me that there were many in the group that would be struggling and not really sure where to even begin in terms of meeting their responsibilities within their businesses. So they would have been in the spotlight trying to provide up-to-the-minute information to their teams and their workmates. And so I just felt that I had a platform in order to do that. So that's what took me to there. And I guess in the broader sense of things, I have a passion for making the world a better place, I suppose. I feel that I have the natural talent, maybe, of presenting ideas that can, thank you, which can often get dragged down into real technical terminology and real science type language, which can confuse and make things overly complicated. I really enjoy just pulling it all apart and making it as simple as possible and finding the medium or the platform where people's attention is and taking it there and getting the message out as far and wide as possible. And it feels like it's been a success so far.
Absolutely. And I think that's why advanced safety has been so successful. Yes, you have a health and safety business, but everything you've done and you do, I feel, is from the heart. And it's that kind of, it's that comes across so strongly. And I'm sure that's really helped in terms of, your business success, but also your personal success on social media and things like that.
Yeah, thank you.
And so, you are just so active on digital channels and social media. Radio host, podcast producer, live interviewer. I've been reflecting on that a lot, particularly as I've been starting this Digital Culture Ideas show. And, because when you do that, you do feel quite vulnerable and exposed. So how do you mentally deal with that? And what's the key to your confidence to really put yourself out there, because you are more exposed when you're doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you're basically putting yourself out for criticism. And also, on the other side of things, you're also putting yourself out there for praise as well. And I guess it's trying to be mature enough to know that whether it's a positive or a negative comment, that I'm very unlikely to ever meet those individuals, and really their thoughts don't have that much of an impact on me. The people around me certainly do, my family and my peers and those that I care about. But ultimately, so long as what I say and do continues to be authentic, then
Yes.
I haven't really got anything to lose, really. And for those that feel offended, or I would actually argue maybe threatened by my approach, well, I think their approach is probably perhaps numbered in terms of how long that will be tolerated, particularly now where everything is so open and transparent that the traditional I'm going to protect my patch and I'm going to protect my IP, it's not going to last for too much longer. So for me, I feel like so long as I stick to who I am and my truth, I can't lose.
Absolutely. And actually, we did touch on this in the Business Leaders New Zealand podcast, which you invited me on as well. Yeah. It's that if you're a kind and you're a good person, then on social media, that's what comes through. So good on you, Matt. That's really good advice for people to take away.
Thank you.
And coming back to kind of digital culture ideas, so one of the reasons I started this podcast was because I had a YouTube channel for a while where I was doing short videos on digital culture. But what I've come to realize is I'm still very much a learner on this journey. I don't know it all on this subject. And so part of this podcast is wanting to bring on, the people I've had the privilege of meeting who, like you, are really inspiring and clever and funny, and kind of getting your take on what digital culture is, because it does mean different things to different people. So what's your take on digital culture?
Well, I think we've kind of touched on some of it around authenticity, and if you approach it with, an open heart, then I think you're set to succeed. And I think also is that in the past we've been taught that in order to get involved in a trade or to become a subject matter expert, you have to go away and you have to spend years and years and years practicing that trade, or going to higher education to get the piece of paper to say that you can do this officially.
Yes.
And I think what the rise of digital culture is doing is it's challenging the very foundation of that mindset, where suddenly we're seeing kids who aren't even in double figures in years age are suddenly now multimillionaires because of their success on YouTube channels and on TikTok. So all of a sudden the value of the traditional mindset and the way of getting a position of authority in society is now very different. And I think even today in COVID-19 scenario, we're being pushed along in that evolution at a pace that's never been seen before. And I think we're now likely to see people becoming ever more open to the idea of getting their information and their sources of direction from online sources, rather than from the traditional media and the traditional places of information. I think that's the rise of digital culture, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it's been a really interesting space for the last few years anyway. But now I think we're really going to see a big evolutionary step toward accepting that this is now the new norm.
Absolutely. And oh gosh, that's actually such a great point. Like the internet has just created all this access for people to
Mm-hmm.
just Google things and learn things and start doing and getting things done.
Yep,
And the tools have become easier and easier as well. You know, even so tools that like make up the beautiful frame that we're kind of in for this interview. That is, you know, I only learned that about a week ago. So,
yeah,
so all of that makes these, you know, being digital and professional and digital really, really easy. It's a great
yeah.
point.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I'll add to that, Hills, in terms of there is, and we'll no doubt touch on this again, but in terms of the negative spin on all of this. So we're seeing lots of fake news in social media and in the media saying, you know, giving us the impression that we really can't have a lot of faith in the information that we are seeing online. I actually think that's possibly more to do with our maturity level in using this technology. So I don't think that it's a necessarily an evil thing. I think all it's doing is really shining a light back at us in terms of what's been tolerated in the corridors and behind the scenes is now suddenly, you know, it's everywhere, and it's, you know, we're being exposed to it en masse, and now we are only just really learning how to assess what is trustworthy and what isn't. Whereas before, if you saw a screen like this where you've got a really pretty logo at the bottom and, you know, a couple of official titles on the screen, you would just automatically accept that, oh, well, they've been in this profession for years, they've earned the right to be here. That happens to be true in this case, but I think it's going to take time, but we will start to be able to see who is authentic, who is providing accurate information, and who's really there to stir up trouble and be a nuisance. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's kind of the two sides of it, isn't there?
Totally.
And
yeah.
And bringing it sort of to a bit more of the now in terms of what we're going through with COVID-19. You know, this has meant that a lot of businesses have had to relook at their business models and find ways to work remotely and online and actually work remotely with customers and things like that as well. Can you tell me when this hit, like, I mean, you were already doing a lot of digital things, but what went through your mind as we went into lockdown and you perhaps had to change some of your business practices, or where you actually didn't have to change as much, maybe because you're doing more digital or online? So tell me about where that kind of sat for you.
Yeah, I guess we were possibly in a bit of a privileged position where we're quite an agile company. So we were, the main office is based here in Christchurch. It's in a shared workspace. So there's other businesses working around us, really quite a nimble, cool wee space. So it was quite a natural move for us to simply grab our laptops and work remotely back from at home. But the first few days, we had the ability to simply close the doors and just allow ourselves to focus in on ourselves and our families, and also for me to just respond to our clients' needs. So instantly got a message out to all of our clients to say, hey, look, we are still in business. We're here to help support you as and when required. And many of our clients came back to say, hey, look, we're in the same boat. We just don't really know what's happening right now. Whereas others were essential services. So we still had to continue serving them. Yeah, so I was privileged or lucky enough, thanks to the social media work that I had been doing. I'd already been getting to know subject matter experts in the legal world, in the marketing and business world, and a few individuals were able to help me to be recognized as an essential service provider, which then allowed me to get a container, which I'm sat in now, on our driveway. So the response really was just simply utilizing the tools that we had already been using. So circulating a newsletter through MailChimp to all of our clients, getting information out through Facebook and LinkedIn to let people know that we were still operating. And then in the space of a few days to be able to announce that we were actually an essential service as well. So we could actually operate as a team. It allowed me to have one of our team members join me in the container, so long as we adhered to our COVID-19 plan. So it was really just making the most of our regular practice anyway, and also the tools that we had to hand. So really, if anything, it just allowed me to appreciate the agility of the organization and the flexibility of it. So we're now having regular Zoom conference calls with team members around the country. We're now having very regular conference calls with clients. And I'm really pleased to say in the last week, we've onboarded several new clients who are actually really high quality clients. So we're clearly doing something right. And I think one of the messages is to avoid the natural instinct of just going into hibernation, and instead try and provide as much value as you can on whatever platform you are comfortable in. And one of the big drivers for me to get onto Facebook Live was to provide support and assist the people that I care about and the communities that I care about. But in turn, it was also letting everyone know, hey, we're still here and we're still more than capable of producing good results. Yeah,
absolutely. Maybe you couldn't do everything that you could do in the past, but you can still work out what you can do. And it sounds like you've really focused down and on that, which is awesome. And fantastic to be bringing on new business and clients, because I imagine there's a lot of businesses out there going, I really, I need help, I need guidance. So, that's awesome that you've been considered essential service. Like that's, it makes so much sense to me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And so, I had been looking at those government guidelines for level 1 and 2, and both involve social distancing, either kind of mandatory or sort of really highly encouraged. Now, you actually run a webinar on this that you've got coming up. Can you tell me about that and perhaps where people can find that? Will there be a lot of people looking for those tips as we move through the levels?
Yeah, happy to. So I've actually been running advanced safety webinars over the last few weeks, and as a result of that, HRNZ, or the Human Resources Institute of New Zealand, has very kindly allowed me an audience with their members, and it's also public as well, so everyone has access to it. So it is being presented live today, this afternoon, and tickets are still available on Eventbrite.
And it's March the 7th today.
Yeah. Just to get that out there, and then basically the recording will be available ongoing. So HRNZ. .co.nz, I believe it is, or hrinz.co.nz. We'll have a recording of that, and that will be available to the public. And then also what Advanced Safety will be doing is, as a side shoot to our normal practice, we also do a lot of electronic learning, and we have an electronic learning school, which we have only really kind of slightly announced. It's been there, but it's been quietly ticking along. In the next few weeks, it will be making a lot more noise. So the content from the webinar today and the webinars that I've done previously will be boiled down into a real kind of micro, this is what you need to know. And also there'll be downloadable tools which the students, the participants can make use of, including a COVID-19 return to work checklist, which has now had 2,500 downloads in the last 2 weeks.
Wow.
And the feedback from that has been phenomenal. So it's a very powerful tool. And it will also include editable policy statements, safe work methodology statements, and you'll also be able to get your hands on a hazard risk control statement as well. So it's all going to be accessible over the next couple of weeks from Advanced Safety, and it's also most importantly going to be very affordable so that everyone can get access to that.
Oh, that's amazing, Matt. And that's
Mm.
just such a great leap forward for organisations, because everyone's trying to reinvent the wheel and come up with what they need. So having those kind of templates will be really, really valuable, and ones that have been done by professionals as well, who really know what they're talking about in the space.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was actually kind of milling on that this morning. So, as part of the COVID-19 interview series that I've been doing, one of the key people I've had the privilege to speak to, and obviously including yourself in that, Hills, is a really interesting woman called Deanne Brabant, who is a senior solicitor at Morrison Kent Lawyers.
She is very cool. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. She was also in a previous life the chief prosecutor for WorkSafe NZ, so she's been involved in some of the most significant cases to date. One of the things that came up in our recent conversation was around, right now, businesses need to be reviewing their hazard risk registers and ensuring that they are still accurate. Before the team start to return back to the workplace, you need to be sure that you've got COVID-19 in control. You need to be, ensuring that you've got not only the hazard documented, but the necessary controls in place, which are then communicated to your teams. One of the real gems that came from that conversation was her point that in many of the prosecutions that she was involved in, it wasn't the fact that the companies had breached the Health and Safety at Work Act. It was that they had failed to ensure that those that were recording the hazards and risks within the business hadn't received any formal or informal training around hazard and risk management, which really got me thinking. Is like, actually, you know what? Most of the businesses that we have reviewed over the last 2 or 3 years, in most instances, the people that have been involved in that process in-house have not had that training. And it's something that we provide a lot to our customers now, is to ensure that their teams are well and truly on par with what hazard and risk management even means, let alone actually putting it into action.
The foundations of health and safety, absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. So again, that's another big part of our online training course, plug, is around hazard and risk management. We're basically just trying to upskill people as much as possible.
Something that I was discussing yesterday in a security and COVID-19 kind of talk, and it was a great question which came up from the crowd, which sort of said, do you think we should, after this, kind of when things return to normal, if we should do a bit of a review, a lessons learned, what worked well, what could have been done better. And I can see how this can apply for health and safety as well as security, so should we get ourselves in this kind of situation again, which can always happen, it might be something different, or it might be similar, or it might be another flare up of COVID-19, that we can actually, and from a continuous improvement perspective, make sure we take those learnings on and don't kind of get caught again next time.
Absolutely. It's actually one of my key messages now. It has actually been for the last couple of weeks, is that we should, if not already, should be now planning for a return to level 4. And that during our recent discussion, Hilary, we actually, or you reflected on how during the initial response stage, you suddenly found that the silos between HR, health and safety, security, risk, business continuity, suddenly those walls disappeared, and you all found yourselves leaning on one another and sharing each other's skills and experiences and coming up with a consistent message to get back to the teams. Now is really the time that all business leadership teams really need to be doing that, and they need to be thinking through what has worked well, what could be tidied up, and also plan for the potential recurrence of COVID-19 in New Zealand and beyond. And I mean, even if there isn't a recurrence, and fingers crossed that's not the case, I think there is a lot of value in having those conversations right now. So if it's not a pandemic, it could be something else. And let's face it, New Zealand's had quite a few significant events, regional and also national, over the last few years. I think now is the time to really get it all in writing and get it agreed, identify training requirements, ensure that those gaps are covered, so that if and when something does happen, we know exactly what we need to do.
Absolutely. Oh, that's a really good point. Absolutely. And to not lose some of that integration and kind of intimacy between health and safety and security and the people team that we've formed during this time.
Absolutely.
Now, moving a little more to kind of people and I guess thinking a bit about mind health and mental health. So COVID-19, it's been probably one of the biggest things that has actually ever happened in my life. It's generated, it's global, it's generated fear and uncertainty, and it's, obviously got impacts on health, but also the economy and socially. So is there anything about kind of that you've found surprising during this time in relation to staying health and safety? Healthy and well?
Yeah, I think it's and it's actually a positive thing, as it has shone a very bright light on the fact that health and safety has a health and well-being component to it. So when we think of health and safety, we think of working at heights, we think of steel toe cap boots, we think of high-vis vests, checklists, and we often neglect the health and the psychosocial hazards that are associated with it. Now, I think as a country, as a culture, we have started to make really good inroads over the last few years. But I think once again, this will, I would like to think, will pour fuel on that conversation. So one of the key messages I'm putting out there at the moment is that if you haven't already, you really need to be getting into regular check-ins and contacts with your people through conference calling or just one-on-one phone calls or even text messages, just to check in to make sure that they're okay. Often it can be as simple as just asking, how are you? And that in itself can be a very powerful thing for people who may feel very vulnerable right now. I think it's really going to raise awareness of the importance of having good health management practices in place. And I think we really need to, if we haven't already, is to start looking at perhaps using external providers, finding subject matter experts, and really tapping into those resources. Yeah, very important.
You're absolutely right. It's kind of been like a big leveler on the playing field, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So it's not just some people over here that have, mental health or mind health issues. With COVID-19, everyone's kind of gone, yeah, I need to take care of myself because I could definitely go a little nuts during this period. Yeah, and it's on a similar subject, but different, but similar outcome. I think the same has happened for diversity and inclusion in some ways as well. So with everyone stuck at home, both males and females, men as much as women have had children coming into their video conferences and sitting on their laps, and whereas before it might have been more hidden away, perhaps considered unprofessional to have kids coming into your meetings. Now it's like, hey, everyone, it's okay for everyone to do that, because what? We're all human. We all have families. You don't have to hide them away just because you're working. And it's almost had a similar positive outcome as the health and well-being piece as well, which is kind of cool.
Absolutely agree. If anyone tuning in has the chance to catch up on any of the New Zealand Health and Safety Professional COVID-19 recordings that we've been doing. Hey, there you go, perfect timing.
Hey Tom, could you help me for a second, love?
It's all good, mate. It's all good. But yeah, and that's it. It's perfect timing. But if you go through the recordings of some of the interviews, you're basically going to meet everyone in my family.
I'll see you in 1 minute, Lila.
But yeah, and that's the new norm, and it's all good. We're all at the moment kind of working from home, so we're just going to make it work. But on that point, I think it brings me to kind of making comment on the country's leadership currently. I feel so privileged and so lucky that we have such an amazing leader in Parliament right now. Politics aside, what Jacinda Ardern's done over the last 24 months really has been quite phenomenal. Where, on the international stage, she's in the arena with the most powerful leaders on the planet, and there she is with her newborn and her husband by her side. And I think that has allowed the country to, consciously or not, follow the lead, follow her lead, and find that in these circumstances, of course, it's acceptable to have your kids as part of your conference calls. It's not going to make any difference. If anything, it just means that we are all human. And I think technology, I think events like this continue to bring us further and further toward a truly authentic, truly in touch with what our passions and what right is moving forward. I feel really positive about the future, despite what's going on in the world. I think we're actually seeing the two worlds conflicting right now, and I think as time goes, we'll start to see one come through as the succeeder, and I really believe it will be what has always been, is that it will be people and it will be truth. It will come through, and Absolutely. We're going to be okay.
You're right. Her communication style has just been really digital, like in terms of having, digital conversations with people, videos. She's doing videos at night and answering questions. She's had the 2 kind of daily stand-ups in front of people. Like, she has just been doing the best communication for this, particular situation in particular. It's been really, really impressive from a digital kind of culture perspective, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's been phenomenal. No, I mean, she'll go down in history books, there's no doubt about it. And also her message delivery, there's a real masterclass in the way in which she has navigated the levels for New Zealand. In terms of the announcement of moving from moving from level 3 into the lockdown, and how that how she used the weekends and the days and the amount of information that she's given us, and then held back just enough to avoid panic and to avoid real levels of anxiety on a national level is I mean, they will write textbooks about it, because it has been just incredible.
Yeah, the messaging was very clear as well, wasn't it? Like, as we're going down through the levels, it was, we're prepared to move through these levels quickly. We're prepared to move through these levels quickly, and then they did. It was definitely clear messages throughout. So Matt, we've mentioned the webinar that you've got on kind of level 1 and level 2 and what people need to be thinking about there. Are there any other upcoming events that you want people to know about that you've got coming up?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think possibly the best place, was 2 places just to keep a tab on, right? So one, the New Zealand Health and Safety Professionals group is public. Yes. It's free to join, okay? So that's on Facebook and on LinkedIn. So as you mentioned, there's now over 1,000 members on Facebook. The group has been around for less than a year. I think it's only about 7 or 8 months old on Facebook. And it's become a hub for open conversation on quite a broad range of topics. So yes, it's health and safety, but there's definitely HR, there's definitely risk management. With input from yourself, there's certainly
I'm a member of that group as well, because I find it really valuable from a security perspective and from an integrated safety management system perspective. Yeah.
Bingo, you've got it right, and that's kind of our big buzzword at the moment. Is before COVID kicked in, advanced safety was really shifting into the integrated management space. Yes. We were starting to give integrated management systems to our clients. So based on ISO standards, which just fascinates me and gets me really excited. But and then the other space that people really, if they want to keep on board or up to date with what we're doing, is just simply following the advancedsafety.co.nz website. We're producing so much content and so many tools and products. I'm having trouble keeping up with it myself, in all honesty. As you mentioned before, the latest thing is the Advanced Safety Podcast, which was only an idea a couple of days ago and has now got, I think, 6 or 7 episodes now online already. Things are moving at a pace, but I think it has to be like that because at the moment things are moving at a pace. And in the early days, when I first got involved in health and safety 10 years ago, I did my research. I attended public gatherings. I went to professional meetings within my sector and was left feeling pretty underwhelmed. And I sat back and waited to see who was going to step up to do something. And no one did. So I just took the bull by the horns and just got on with it. And I think possibly that's a key piece of advice is, don't wait to be recognized as an authority or a leader within your profession. Create a platform for yourself, tell your story, and bring other people in, a bit like what we're doing right now.
Yes,
It's just sharing stories. It can be really powerful and can lead to really amazing things. So yeah, don't hold back.
That's so true. And I just want to highlight that as well, that your website, so www.advancedsafety.co.nz, it is extremely packed with information. So, and it's all up there. There's podcasts, there a number of podcast series, there's information, there's just so much that people can learn, even without actually directly kind of contracting you for something, Matt. You're giving so much away for free on that website, but I think it just shows where your company and where your mind is at in terms of, this is about sharing information with people, and because of that, people come to you, and your company's doing so well. So thank you so much, Matt, for being on the show today. It's been so great to have you on, and I've just loved talking about digital culture and health and safety. And everything, digital marketing and how you're doing that as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Hilary.
So everyone go check Matt out. He's definitely one to watch, and I'm certainly watching you, Matt, as you're a few steps ahead of me.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, I don't know. I think I'm going to have to watch out, to be honest. Like, I think for those tuning in, I think you guys are going to have to definitely follow digital culture ideas, because I think if this is one of your first interviews, I'm in trouble. I better watch out.
It's very kind. So thanks everyone. Really excited to share with you on this show a series of ideas, tips and discussions about things that you can do to build your digital culture. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye.